My name is Raven Solomon, and I'm the clinical pharmacist here at the Benzer Pharmacy corporate office, and you are listening to the RX Owners Podcast.
Are you a pharmacist or a pharmacy industry professional who wants to open your own pharmacy business? What are the best steps to opening and operating your own pharmacy? What type of pharmacy should you open? How long will you have to wait before you can launch your own pharmacy business? The RX Owners Podcast is all about pharmacy ownership. This podcast will guide you on the journey to becoming a pharmacy owner and provide valuable insight and direction about running your pharmacy business successfully. The RX Owners Podcast is part of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, the first internet radio station dedicated to the business of pharmacy. Now, let's listen, learn, and take the lead in pharmacy together with your host, Colin Angle.
All right, so let's get right into it. This week on Owners RX Podcast, we have decided to focus more on how pharmacists are helping pharmacists within the industry. Here at Owners RX Podcast, we like to focus on building up the independent pharmacists from a business standpoint and helping with a long-term business plan that's going to help support them, but overall primarily supporting the community around them. Help with getting consultation, community services out in the open a lot more intricately and a lot more detailed, and having individuals really get the assistance they need for the medications, prescriptions, and health issues that they are facing on a regular basis. As we know, the industry has become detached in a lot of areas, and that is what Owners RX Podcast and Benzer Franchise has partnered to do together, is to focus on creating a lot more of a solution there for the customers and for the communities throughout the country. We have decided to bring back Vinesh Darji, the business development director for Benzer Pharmacy Franchise, to help discuss his early years as a pharmacist. When he first began, I will let him talk more about this, but when he first got into the industry, he started out as an independent pharmacist and then started owning franchises for a medicine shop. And I'll let him get a little bit more involved in that conversation. But tell me a little bit about your beginning experience there, Vinesh.
Great. Thank you very much for having me again on the show. It's always a pleasure to be here. So as you know, I graduated back in 1993 in England, actually. And then I went forward from there to 1996, where I worked for a box chain called Eckerd Drugs. And learning from Eckerd's, the basic mechanism behind being a pharmacist, a registered pharmacist, I was fortunate enough in 2002 to actually pick up a pharmacy that was in business for more than 40 years. The pharmacist was retiring, and it was just the right place at the right time. So I was able to pick up that pharmacy and run that as an independent pharmacy. You know, initially you're always thinking to run the pharmacy just like the Eckerd store that you've got, or the box chains that you worked in before. But independent pharmacy is a completely different ballgame. And it's more about customer interaction, customer involvement, and community involvement, as you mentioned. So, you know, as going forward with that, we were able to rethink and figure out how to run this independent pharmacy, not only on a profitable basis, but also to help patient care and our community at large.
Vinesh, I have been actually working with Benzer Pharmacy and going to different career days and talking to different graduates, for pharmacy graduates that are basically going to be graduating in 2019 and then also the winter of this year too. And a lot of them have expectations once they get into the industry, you know, especially at school. It seems like a lot of it is customer interaction, service, clinical offerings, different intricacies there where it's going to be primarily for the patient. So they really are focused on retail. But then once they get there, because again, we've spoken to individuals throughout our company here at Benzer, but also at different trade shows. So for example, NACDS a couple weeks ago in Denver, I was able to talk to people that have spent several years in the industry as an independent pharmacist or even working for a larger retail chain. And they said that a lot of the issues that they face is they don't have the time to do everything that they learned in school. So they feel like now, again, as I said in episode 1, but the whole purpose of us getting away from in this industry is to not be a pill pusher necessarily, but more of somebody that can help consult and help get them to that path to better health and wellness. For your experience within retail pharmacy, is that what you face primarily? Did you face a lot of that day-to-day of just being almost like a tool of the overall cycle, the pharmacy cycle, or did you really get to use some of the stuff that you learned through school?
Sure, that's a great question. As you mentioned, we learn a lot of clinical things at school level. We study pharmaceutics, pharmacology, pharmacognosy, and all of these things you're expected to bring out to the forefront as you practice pharmacy in your later years. However, the reality is when you pick up a independent pharmacy, you're working for yourself, one of the key factors is that you are in business and you're by yourself. So often it's a way up between being a pharmacist on a clinical basis, speaking to your patients, doing patient care, counseling them regularly, making sure they're taking the medications correctly and helping them with any interactions they may have with their medicines. But at the same time, you are running a business. And when you're running these businesses, it becomes like one person wearing multiple hats. And I found, and I'm just going to speak from personal experience, that, what I thought would be an independent pharmacy for me in terms of patient care and counseling, things like that, often turned out to be, hey, this is a business decision. And I found myself wearing so many hats. I had to become proficient in HR. I learned marketing, local level, and somewhat digital marketing at that time. And I moved forward from that, and I had to learn the actual business acumen. So how do you analyze a profit and loss sheet? How do you look at your balance sheet at the end of the month? What do you need to do to curtail expenses? So I found myself becoming more and more involved in the business side and losing that focus on pharmacy.
It's interesting to hear you say that. I guess interesting and also almost the norm within the industry as well, where a lot of people aren't able to commit that time that they want to. But now you find yourself on the other side of things a little bit. Now you are the business coach. Now you are helping them lay out a good groundwork and actually working closely with me for franchises on figuring out a good marketing plan for their local market, their local area, and getting foot traffic, getting referrals, building a business model for each one of these franchisees. And so it looks like you've perfected it. I'm guessing through failures and also through different successes as well. What made you decide to switch over to from say pharmacist behind the counter to now assisting with the business development part of things?
Well, Colin, I've been a pharmacist for 25, 26 years. I lose count now. It's been so many years. But, like you said, through experience, really, I've run several independent stores, not just the first one that I opened in 2002. And I think I have a place in my life right now where I can offer that experience to other folks coming on board. There's young pharmacists that have just qualified. There are pharmacists out there that may be somewhat not motivated or disgruntled by their current location and current job that they have, perhaps at a box chain, and they're not finding their passion in that role. So I think coming on board here, I've been able to use my experience and knowledge to create a model that's very easy for these upcoming pharmacists and pharmacy owners to use. And as I mentioned, we wear many hats, and I remember that categorically of how much I did as an independent pharmacist. But we, in this model, are able to surpass all of that. Why? Because now you have a support network. You have a team of people just like yourself who can help with marketing. We're not marketing experts, so why not leave it to an expert? So if you think about being in an independent pharmacy and wearing all these hats, all of a sudden you're in a model or a franchise system that actually cares about you. They're providing you the services, they're providing you the manpower, they're providing you the support network that you need to be a successful store or a store operator. And with this support network backing you up, that is the key to being a successful pharmacist and also a successful businessman. Now, bringing you back to that first question with the opening question, don't you think now if I have a support network helping me with the manual tasks or the tasks associated with operating a pharmacy daily, I now have a lot more time, and our franchises will have a lot more time to do counseling. They'll be able to do these niche clinical services that are out there. And a lot of pharmacists just don't have the time, knowledge, or know-how to do that.
It seems like the more I look at it, the schedule of a day-to-day for a pharmacist is they get caught up with contracting, insurance, compliance, just a number of items that I'm guessing you learn in school to a degree, but at the same time, you don't understand how dense that material quite is. And then also you might not understand how much that really is going to take up your monthly, weekly, and overall annual life. I mean, I'm sure if you calculate the hours, it'd be mind-boggling how many days you consistently spend on these little details. So obviously being a part of a more unified situation would help assist you in getting those tasks completed more efficiently, and almost having some of those services completely automated where you're not working quite as hard on those and you can actually focus on that pharmacy and that community around you. So I understand that's the model of franchise, is uniting these independent pharmacies. Is that what you're like really focusing on as a franchise business development director?
Sure. There's so many independent pharmacists out there. There's over 23,000 independent pharmacies versus 9,000 CVS or maybe 11,000 Walgreens out there. So the 23,000, although they're all independent pharmacies, have the power. And we just want to be in a position here to bring all these independent pharmacies together. Can you imagine how the country or the shape of our country would change if 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 independent pharmacies were under one brand? Look at the power we would have under cost, of our purchasing power. Look at the power we would have with lobbyists. So we would be a force to be reckoned with. And it's time that we are a force to be reckoned with. We don't want the larger PBMs just running us over and we do what they tell us because we have no choice. Often you're signing contracts through PSAOs and they've done the negotiating for you, but you don't know anything. You have no idea what reimbursement you're going to get. And it's just a failure in the whole system. So our goal, our dream for all our franchise owners who are current and also coming on board is to unite under one brand, to have this power of leverage and to be there and have a voice in our pharmaceutical industry.
And that pretty much brings me over to Raven. Raven, she has been working for Benzer Pharmacy corporate for a little bit of time now, has some time under her belt, and she actually is also a pharmacist. Again, the whole point of this episode is really focusing on how pharmacists are helping these independent pharmacists really grow and do better from a business standpoint, and also the focus is the patient. And so Raven found herself working in the clinical department here and helping out with a number of programs. Raven, can you give me a little bit of background that you have in pharmacy, kind of where you came from, and then also what you're currently doing and what you enjoy most about your position?
Sure. And first off, just thank you for having me today. This is just an exciting opportunity. Just a little bit about myself. I graduated from pharmacy school in 2017. Got licensed, and I started working for a MTM call center. And I was working there for a few months. Then, my husband, he found a job in Tampa and he's like, hey, let's make this move to Tampa. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I ended up working with Benzer. When I first started, my major project was NTM. I was, hired to kind of help the busier stores, help out with their NTM and, get them kind of caught up in everything. And then we decided that we would start doing NTM for all the stores from the corporate office. And so in doing that, I have had the opportunity to, talk to a lot of patients, and they all have very, very good things to say about Benzer. And it's been really rewarding because I feel like that's the reason that pharmacists go to school. They go to school to have that patient interaction, to talk to patients, to help them, to make sure they're taking their medications the way that they should be, or to help them get the most from their medications that they can. And so some of the other projects that I've kind of taken on, diabetes education is big this year. We've partnered with a couple companies to help kind of implement some diabetes education classes at the stores, and just to kind of make sure we fill that need for education in the community. And then we're helping with immunizations, trying to start a Coumadin clinic. There's just so many things that, we have in the works for Benzer.
And it seems like what's really beautiful about that is that there are a lot of these opportunities. And now, since you have that education from a pharmacist standpoint, that how these can be put into play. I know diabetes is a big one. 100% of people are actually affected by diabetes to some capacity. 1/3 has pre-diabetes or has diabetes in the country. So this is obviously an overwhelming problem. So getting that education out there is extremely important. And so doing it at that local level for each one of the independent pharmacies is really the primary goal, is to help give people the information they need to help correct this path that they found themselves, this hole that they found themselves in, and correct that path. So I would love to actually learn a little bit more about what your day-to-day consists of now, because before I'm sure you would have been more in that retail, but I'm curious actually, so I guess I have two questions. When you were in school, did you always want to be more on the outside as a pharmacist, helping create these programs, helping look at that bigger picture, or, did you want to be in that retail landscape? And then also, now that you are looking at that bigger picture, now that you are, a part of a corporate team helping put in these programs, what does that day-to-day really consist of?
So actually, when I was in pharmacy school, I worked as a pharmacy intern at Walgreens, and I did enjoy retail. There was a certain level of patient interaction that I got, and I did really enjoy that aspect of working in retail. But then there were other aspects that I didn't enjoy as much, such as, we had metrics that we had to meet every month. We didn't really have a lot of support from corporate, when we needed more hours or we needed, more technicians or things like that. We didn't really have that support. I never really imagined that I would be, building out these clinical programs for independent pharmacies. I never imagined that, I would have been given this tremendous opportunity. But now that I am in this role, I do feel like my day-to-day kind of consists of, I work on NTM. Like I said, it's been my longitudinal project. I work on NTM, kind of focus on that in my mornings, and then in my afternoons, I spend, working out the logistics for the other clinical programs that we're implementing. And so I think the most rewarding aspect is that I've been able to help so many patients, and they're all very, very excited about the programs that we're implementing. And I see so much growth for the company in that aspect.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I feel like there's a lot of people out there that are, I'd say in the mainstream media are not really heard about. But when you look at the analytics and numbers of everything, that that those people are there and they need that assistance. And so building out these programs just for a resource within the community is massive. And, going back to what Vinesh said a little bit ago of the 23,000 independents, which I heard 23, I've heard 26. There's a lot of them. There's just a lot of independents out there, especially we're in Florida. And I feel like anytime I drive by a plaza, I see a different independent pharmacy up. So knowing that, there are all these individual brick and mortar locations that are obviously helping out a number of people, because these businesses are still surviving, but they're not thriving, and that's where we really come in. And that's where we want to help assist them is to get them on that right path. And so, I mean, great example is getting these clinical programs in place, offering these services to these individuals. But then the independent pharmacies are always kind of restricted by that time restraint every single day, where they want to be able to give this individual consultation service and dedicate that time, but they can't necessarily, simply because they have all these other accruing tasks. And if they're anything like me, I know I've procrastinated my fair share of times. And so especially at the end of the month, I can only imagine what it is like for paperwork, so, when I try to figure out what's the best pathway for success, it's obviously the pharmacists really helping each other on this, because not everybody really goes into, good example actually is somebody I know that works at a big retail chain, and they're really kind of out in the boondocks in Florida, and they fill a pretty high, script count a month. And when I talked to them, he almost said to me in a robot voice that he's kind of lost his entire purpose within pharmacy, because he's not doing what he really set out to do. So he's even talking about changing his career completely. And of course, that's when I said to him, well, there's other alternatives. You don't have to be part of that same everyday repetitive nature. What made you two both, because I'm going to bring this to both of you now, what made you both kind of jump into this side of things? I understand that you have your interests and everything, but at the same time, from a business standpoint, this is crucial to the growth of the entire industry of helping navigate them business-wise, which Vinesh, and then also helping support them clinical-wise, which is what you're doing here. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you both have to say on that.
Yes. So what it is, as you can imagine, it's a perfect blend. If we have a blend between the business acumen side and also the clinical services. So just take a moment to imagine you see a pharmacist, they're running like, headless chickens. They're working very hard back there, like your friend. He's burnt out simply because he's filling 100,000, scripts a year, and it's just too much. they don't get to do what they want to do. So having a perfect balance and a perfect blend would be the key. And we feel with this model, we're able to offer them a hands-off approach to running their pharmacy. Why? Because now we're taking care of their HR, we're taking care of their accounting, we're taking care of their marketing. By doing that, we're freeing up time to do the things that Raven just talked about, are all the clinical services. I don't remember the last time where I was able to even interact with anybody at a Coumadin clinic or, manage patients with diabetes. And these are the key core values that a pharmacist has. We are experts in drug therapy. And, a lot of times it gets pushed away because we're too busy doing our business things. And without that, you cannot do your clinical. So we have an opportunity here to blend both together, create a model for yourself that you can work as a pharmacist, we'll take care of the business side, and also give you the knowledge and expertise in order to create your clinical services. I think as they can move forward into their clinical services, they know that they can get reimbursed for some of these services. So it's a different mode of operation. But these clinical services are what we want to do as pharmacists and to demonstrate our ability.
So I would totally agree. These clinical services, there's so many pharmacists out there who work in retail, but they really want to have, they really want a chance to show off that clinical knowledge that they spent so much time in school, accruing. And so one of my responsibilities is, as I'm talking to my pharmacists at the stores, I want to get their perspective, I want to know what can I do from my end to help support you and to help you, help these clinical services thrive at your stores. And so I think the biggest thing is just getting them as much support as they need. If that means, bringing in another pharmacist, like a floater pharmacist for some coverage while you do these clinical services, you do the diabetes class, I will do that. Or if it means, getting an extra technician to help hold the pharmacy down while you're talking to patients, that's kind of been something that I've taken on as well, just to kind of make sure that these clinical programs can thrive and, these pharmacists get the chance to actually use that clinical knowledge that they want to show off.
And actually, I can go to a personal situation as of late that my father went to, and I actually went to you, Raven, with this, seeking just some additional help because he's a baby boomer generation individual. He likes his burger and soda, and it's kind of led him down to type 2 diabetes. And he's had a bad event happen within the last month, and he's already seeing improvement because of his diet. He was in the hospital a month ago. I played golf with him this last weekend. That kind of explains basic nutrition and how it can help so much is, every time I see a soda in his hand, I slap it out. Anytime I see fries near him, I eat them all, which is fantastic, but the whole goal is to basically let them know that everything's in moderation, getting them to understand what that diet entails, what this disease is, and how it kind of combines for a really bad scenario for them. And then also letting them know that there are helpful solutions. And in this day and age, there's just so many recipes and so much information out there on helping create a really good long diet that you can abide by. Very good, even if you're a foodie like me. So as far as your experience with these programs up to date, you feel like the purpose for everybody moving forward should be really focusing on diabetes?
I feel that diabetes should be one of our main focus only because it has reached so many people. And with it reaching, that vast amount of people, I think that it's very important that, patients understand that there are simple things that they can do to help, control their diabetes. And being that the pharmacists are the most accessible healthcare professional, I think that we would be the perfect people to, counsel patients on, let them know, educate them, help them, better control their diabetes, or just understand that they have a support system in us. Because sometimes people, I speak to patients all the time and they want to do well. They just don't know how, or they don't know, exactly how to go about, getting their diabetes under control. And like I said, we're the most easily accessible healthcare advisor. We can touch a lot of diabetes patients just by having the time to sit down and talk and just,
Absolutely. And not just that, for free. It's not like they have to go in and spend any money or wait in a long line or anything like that. I know that pharmacists, a lot of independent pharmacists, whether Benzer affiliated or not, they're eager to go around that counter and have that conversation, because that's the whole goal, is helping out that community. And I know I probably say community 10 times during each episode. I'm going to from now on, because that's really the primary focus, is benefiting them from an educational standpoint with their medications, but also with these other clinical offerings that do focus on the many diseases that are plaguing our communities throughout the country. So the next question I really want to just kind of get to is if you had to pick, from a independent pharmacist standpoint, I know you guys are both not independent pharmacists. Luckily, Vinesh has some experience here, but if you had to pick a la carte, what would be something that you would want the most of from just from a help standpoint for independent pharmacy? What would that be,
So the number one thing I hear from all our franchise clients, and also from my own experience, is marketing. And I know you're the guru of marketing here for us, but it is marketing, because the independent pharmacists don't know how to market locally. They don't know how to do the digital stuff. And I think that's one of the number one keys that we need. One, it's driving traffic to the pharmacy. And two, it's making everybody aware in the community around that pharmacy, that independent store is a pharmacy, they're ready to help you, and it's bringing awareness to them. So I think number one is the marketing. And then something after that in terms of resources would be our ability to provide you accounting help, HR help, acquisitions help, ongoing operational help. We have great discounts on vendors. If we find something that's going to benefit our corporate stores, it gets shared to our franchise stores. So I think number one would be marketing. And after that would be help. Again, I think Raven can talk more about this, but I'm sure a lot of pharmacists out there want to know how, who, when, and how to contact people so that they can implement a clinical service program. And I think that's number two.
I think the one thing that I think would really help support the independent pharmacist is training. As I'm going through some of these clinical services, I'll give you an example, CLIA waivers. A lot of CLIA waivers, it's like a document that helps you use your pharmacy as like a pseudo lab. So you can do like point of care testing, like cholesterol, A1C, glucose. A lot of the pharmacists, we don't learn how to do point of care testing. So just simple things like that, like training, just making sure that you're well-versed in any clinical service that you're offering, just being able to give you that training and give you that support, just to make sure that you're providing a quality service to your patients.
That makes all the sense in the world to me. And kind of going back to what Vinesh said as well, from that independence standpoint, when you're by yourself, it's really difficult to arrange those relationships in order to find the right people, and also just to find consumers in your area. There's a lot of different accreditations and a lot of different things, and a lot of, I'd say, red and / gray tape a little bit within the industry as far as how you can target individuals locally. And so that's one thing that my team has been able to work well with, is figuring out how we can do it legitimately and how we can target consumers for foot traffic on a regular basis. But overall, it's the contracts that's going to help get us to get those script counts up, get the business from an OTC level at a lot more visible economically for just, again, foot traffic primarily. But the additional services and offerings that we have, like free delivery and then also clinical, are going to be primary by far. But the contract part for the independent pharmacist, did you have to go through those types of conversations, and did you have to kind of almost fend for yourself a little bit and try to figure everything out? And I'm sure the leverage that you had in those conversations was very minor. It was just like, hey, I have a business, let's work this out, and hey, it's more numbers for them, so they're happy to apply. But you tell me a little bit about those experiences, because I know walking into a franchise or walking into an operation that has those existing contracts in place, it's only going to make it that much easier for them to ramp up to a higher degree of foot traffic at a shorter duration.
So when it comes to contracts, we're talking primarily about insurance contracts. So with insurance contracts, you either have them or you don't. And a lot of the times, you're right, the public will come into your pharmacy with a prescription, and the mother or the child needs a prescription. And unfortunately, when you see their insurance carrier, you can't take it. Why? Because only the larger box chains can take it. There are big problems like that. And that's why leveraging our power as independent pharmacies and uniting under one brand is going to allow us to lobby against those sort of practices that these PBMs are doing on us. And second of all, with these insurance contracts, the help you receive from the franchisor is amazing, because we have contracting specialists here on board in our office, corporate office, and you will be surprised how much they know versus what a typical independent pharmacist knows. We know what we're doing when it comes to drug management and therapy, but when it comes to signing contracts, do I sign? Do I not sign? Do I sign this addendum? Do I not sign this addendum? What does this AWP mean? What does acquisition cost mean? Everything is very fuzzy. Just like you said, it's in gray areas. It's very difficult to understand. And so having that support person right there that you can pick up the phone and get those contracts under you is a great feeling, And being united, having power under one name, one brand is going to allow us eventually to be our own. We'll be able to take on more insurances because they can see that the power of independent pharmacy is growing.
And I would like to conclude episode 2 of Owners RX podcast. On that note, thank you so much, Raven, for coming to join us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And then Vinesh, always a pleasure to have you a part of the conversation.
Thank you so much.
All right. You guys have a good one.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the RX Owners Podcast, part of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. To learn more about the exciting opportunity of owning your own pharmacy, be sure to check out rxownerspodcast.com and be sure to follow the Pharmacy Podcast Network to learn all about the business of pharmacy on Instagram and Twitter. Follow @Pharmacy Podcast.